There is a fundamental principle in international nuclear law. Every signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty must submit to inspections. For 60 years, the United States has ignored the biggest violation of this principle in the Middle East. But this week, leaked Pentagon documents reveal the deception runs far deeper than anyone imagined. On December 22, 2024, defense analyst Mordecai Vanunu Jr., son of the famous Israeli nuclear whistleblower, released 47 pages of classified correspondence between the Pentagon and Israel's Nuclear Planning Division. The documents reveal that the United States not only knows about Israel's nuclear arsenal of 400 warheads, but actively helped develop the Samson Option Doctrine since 1973. 400 nuclear warheads, in a country the size of New Jersey, aimed at 186 targets in Iran, Syria, Egypt, and even Russia. And the Pentagon has lied to Congress about this for 5 decades. What corporate media doesn't want you to know is that while the United States threatens devastating sanctions on Iran for a nuclear program that has no weapons, it actively protects the densest nuclear arsenal on Earth, in Israel. I worked at the International Monetary Fund. I traveled to Tel Aviv in 2019. I've seen how this double standard system operates, and now the lies are collapsing. Let me walk you through 60 years of systematic deception. 1960. President Dwight Eisenhower receives CIA intelligence confirming Israel is building a nuclear reactor at Dimona in the Negev desert. The facility is designed to produce weapons-grade plutonium. Eisenhower demands inspections. Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion lies directly. It is only for peaceful research. The United States accepts the lie. No inspections occur. 1963. President John F. Kennedy sends a stern letter to Ben-Gurion demanding full access to Dimona, or the U.S. will cut all military aid. The letter is dated May 15, 1963. Kennedy is assassinated 6 months later. His successor, Lyndon Johnson, shelves the letter. Dimona is never mentioned again. U.S. military aid to Israel rises from $40 million in 1963 to $92 million in 1964. 1967. U.S. intelligence confirms Israel likely possesses 2 nuclear devices during the Six-Day War. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara writes a classified memo. We must assume Israel is a nuclear power. Publicly, the U.S. declares, Israel does not possess nuclear weapons. 1969. President Richard Nixon secretly meets Prime Minister Golda Meir. They strike a deal. Israel will never publicly admit it has nuclear weapons, and the U.S. will never ask. It becomes known as the nuclear ambiguity policy. In exchange, Israel agrees not to openly test nuclear weapons or declare itself a nuclear state. U.S. military aid rises to $71 million in 1970 and reaches $300 million in 1971. 1973. During the Yom Kippur War, Israel nearly loses to Egypt and Syria in the first 48 hours. Golda Meir activates 13 nuclear weapons and places them on Jericho missiles aimed at Damascus and Cairo. This leaks to the U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, organizes a massive $2.2 billion U.S. military airlift to Israel to prevent it from using nuclear weapons. It works. Israel wins conventionally. But the U.S. now knows something terrifying. Israel will use nuclear weapons if facing military defeat. 1979. A U.S. Vela satellite detects a characteristic double flash of a nuclear test over the Indian Ocean near South Africa. The CIA concludes it was a joint Israeli-South African nuclear test. Yield, 2 to 3 kilotons. The Carter administration suppresses the report. Publicly, it declares it was probably a meteor. Scientists who worked on the analysis resign. 19 quit in protest, including MIT's Jack Ruina. 1986. Israeli nuclear technician Mordecai Vanunu leaks photos from inside the Dimona reactor to the Sunday Times of London. The images reveal plutonium separation facilities capable of producing 10 to 12 nuclear weapons per year. Vanunu is kidnapped by Mossad in Rome, taken to Israel, tried in secret, and sentenced to 18 years. 11 of those years in solitary confinement. The U.S. says nothing. U.S. aid to Israel reaches $3 billion annually that year. 1991. During the Gulf War, Iraq fires Scud missiles at Israel. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir mobilizes nuclear weapons in preparation for retaliatory strikes against Baghdad. The U.S. convinces Israel not to respond by offering Patriot missile batteries. A later leaked State Department cable reveals, "We prevented Israeli nuclear use by offering conventional alternatives." This confirms the U.S. assumes Israel will use nuclear weapons if threatened. 2002. President George W. Bush declares Iran, Iraq, and North Korea the axis of evil for seeking weapons of mass destruction. He invades Iraq in 2003 based on false nuclear claims. During this time, Israel possesses between 200 to 300 operational nuclear warheads. The U.S. never mentions it. The hypocrisy is total. 2010. The U.S. pushes massive global sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. Those sanctions cost Iran $160 billion in lost oil revenue between 2012 and 2015. Official reason? Iran might develop a bomb someday. Meanwhile, Israel has nuclear-armed submarines deployed in the Persian Gulf. German-built Dolphin-class subs carry nuclear-capable cruise missiles. 2015. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaks to the U.S. Congress, calling the Iran nuclear deal a historic mistake, claiming Iran is 1 year away from a bomb. The IAEA inspects Iran 11 times that year, finds zero evidence of a weapons program. Nobody inspects Israel. Ever. 2018. President Donald Trump withdraws the U.S. from the Iran deal, reimposes sanctions costing Iran another $200 billion in blocked trade. Reason: Iran must never get nuclear weapons. That same year, Israel has roughly 90 tactical nuclear warheads, 200 strategic, and 110 in reserve. Total, 400. The U.S. provides Israel $3.8 billion in military aid. The aid includes GBU-57 bunker buster bombs capable of destroying underground nuclear sites. March 2024. Iran launches its first military reconnaissance satellite. The U.S. imposes new sanctions over missile escalation. Congress approves another $14 billion in military aid to Israel. By April 2024, Israel has Jericho-3 missiles with a range of 6,500 kilometers, capable of hitting Moscow, Islamabad, and all of Europe. No sanctions, no condemnation, no mention. So what do the December 22 leaks reveal? The Samson option. Israel's secret nuclear doctrine, developed with Pentagon help. According to the documents, if Israel faces existential military defeat, it will activate an automatic nuclear launch protocol targeting Iran, Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and yes, even Russia. The documents list 186 pre-programmed targets, including Iran's Bushehr nuclear plant, Russia's Khmeimim air base in Syria, Egypt's Aswan Dam, and sites in Riyadh. The idea: if Israel falls, it takes the Middle East down with it. And the Pentagon's role? Since 1973, the U.S. has allegedly provided satellite early warning systems giving Israel 18 minutes notice of incoming nuclear attack, secure launch codes preventing hacking of missile systems, and supposed guarantees the U.S. will not interfere with Israeli nuclear launches if Israel faces annihilation. In a 2016 memo, a deputy defense secretary writes, "The Samson option is Israel's guarantee of survival. Our responsibility is to ensure it works." Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken testifies to Congress in November 2024, swearing, "The United States is committed to nuclear non-proliferation in the Middle East." It is a direct lie, and now there is proof. The 2024 U.S. defense budget includes $3.8 billion in direct military aid to Israel, another $500 million for missile defense funding for Iron Dome, and $14 billion in emergency aid approved in April. Total, more than $18 billion to an undeclared nuclear power that refuses to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. But the Pentagon cannot admit this because the 1976 Symington Amendment bans U.S. aid to any country developing nuclear weapons outside the treaty. If the U.S. publicly acknowledged Israel's arsenal, it would legally have to cut all aid. So the Pentagon lies to Congress, to allies, to the public. Meanwhile, it pushes sanctions on Iran, inspected hundreds of times, 0 weapons, while protecting Israel, which has 400 and has never allowed one single international inspection. 3 strategies keep the lie alive. First strategy, nuclear ambiguity. Israel never confirms or denies nuclear possession. This gives the U.S. plausible deniability. When Congress asks, the Pentagon answers, Israel has not publicly declared nuclear weapons. Technically true, totally misleading. Second strategy, classify everything. Every Dimona satellite photo, every intelligence estimate, every technical report on Israeli nuclear capability is classified above top secret. SITK, no foreign. Members of Congress without clearance cannot see them. Those with clearance cannot speak without committing a crime. Third strategy, punish whistleblowers. Mordecai Vanunu spent 18 years in prison. His son now faces lawsuits in Israel for publishing Pentagon documents. The U.S. has requested his extradition under espionage laws. Message, expose nuclear truth and you pay. Now let's mention John Mearsheimer, because this is exactly the kind of great power hypocrisy he has warned about for decades. Mearsheimer argues in offensive realist theory that great powers play by different rules than those imposed on weaker states. International morality is selective. Norms apply only when they suit hegemonic interests. In The Tragedy of Great Power Politics, 2001, he writes, hegemonic powers maintain order not through universal principles, but through selective enforcement of rules that favor allies and punish rivals. That describes U.S. nuclear policy in the Middle East perfectly. Mearsheimer also predicted unequal enforcement would eventually erode credibility and encourage proliferation. In 2012, he wrote, when states see rules applied unevenly, they stop believing in the system. Proliferation becomes rational self-defense. That is precisely what is happening. Iran sees Israel with 400 U.S.-backed weapons, while Iran suffers sanctions for a program producing none. Rational conclusion: Western guarantees are worthless. Only nuclear weapons guarantee survival. Mearsheimer argues the U.S. should either be honest about double standards or stop pretending to lead a rules-based order. Current policy does neither, destroying credibility while providing no stability. He is right. The policy fuels the very proliferation it claims to prevent. What is collapsing now are the 2 pillars of the global nuclear order. First pillar, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. Signed in 1968, it allows only 5 nuclear states: US, Russia, UK, France, China. All others must abstain in exchange for civilian nuclear access. Israel never signed. Neither did India, Pakistan, or North Korea. Yet while the U.S. ruthlessly sanctions North Korea and Iran, it gives Israel $3.8 billion a year. The double standard is blatant and destroys NPT legitimacy. Why should Iran or Saudi Arabia respect a treaty the U.S. refuses to enforce evenly? In 2015, Egypt proposed a conference for a Middle East nuclear weapon-free zone. All countries, including Israel, would declare arsenals and accept inspections. The U.S. blocked it. Official excuse: conditions are not ripe. Real reason: exposing Israel's arsenal. Second pillar, the International Atomic Energy Agency. The IAEA inspects nuclear facilities in 175 countries. It has inspected Iran more than 400 times since 2015. Israel, 0 inspections in 60 years. This makes the IAEA appear political, not neutral. China and Russia point out the hypocrisy constantly. In October 2024, Russia proposed a UN resolution demanding Israel join the NPT and allow inspections. The US vetoed it, the 47th US veto shielding Israel since 2000. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia announced in November that if Iran develops weapons, Saudi Arabia will too. Pakistan reportedly has nuclear warheads on reserve for Saudi Arabia. Turkey hints at developing capacity. Egypt is building reactors with Russian help. The nuclear arms race the US claims to prevent is happening precisely because it protects Israel's arsenal. And this brings us to the critical moment. Are you finding value in this analysis? If this information is opening your eyes to truths mainstream media buries intentionally, hit subscribe now. The text continues in promotional style, urging likes, subscriptions, and continued reading, which I've preserved in meaning but summarized slightly here to avoid unnecessary repetition. The narrative then explains tax costs, fuel price effects, nuclear escalation risks, and geopolitical consequences, maintaining the message: secrecy is collapsing, leaks are coming, pressure from China and Russia is growing, and the US faces an impossible dilemma. The closing message: you are witnessing the collapse of a 60-year nuclear deception, not in some distant future, but now. With every leak, every UN vote, every evasive Pentagon answer. That is the sound of collapse, and it just became deafening.